afternoon. I'm Diana Hart, Garden Director at Poplar Village Gardens, and this is our weekend in August when we're having both of our volunteer work days. I thought I would talk a little bit today about what we're normally doing at this time of the season. It is, in many ways, it's the height of the harvest from now until September or so. And then, of course, there's still continued harvest beyond that, but it just becomes a little bit different at that time. And we're doing some things right now in preparation for that late season harvest and working on some extended season work. This garden bed here is of our construction from trees that we've taken down in other places in the garden where they either were not appropriate or did not suit our purpose. So what we've done and what we try to do in everything that we do is to take the waste material from one process and make it a resource for another process. Now, in this garden bed, if we'd been a little more scientific, everything would have been cut of even size, but these trees were taken down at different points in time, and so our edges are going to be of different heights, which we have decided would be okay. The mulch that we put inside the bed and outside in the pathways was donated to us by an arborist who chips and shreds our limbs, and in return we get free mulch whenever they're doing tree work and they have to get rid of some of their mulch, so they bring that to us. So that is waste material from that process that's being made into a resource here at the garden. The other waste material that we are using in this bed is some sawdust. A friend of mine is a woodworker, and he brings his sawdust for use in the garden. We've used some of it in our composting toilet, but then the remainder of that has been used to fill garden beds and make extra spaces where we can grow food. And then, of course, it continues to feed the plants as it biodegrades. One of the things that we're doing at this time of year is we're planting some things for a fall harvest. Now, this bed right here and the other keyholes were used in the early season to grow peas, and about at the same time we planted some turnips, some mustard greens, some turnip greens, and radishes. So what we have in here now, because the peas have been long spent, is we have the remainder of the beets, the radishes, the turnips, things that are coming up. We've had a lot of greens and turnips this season, but the other thing that we did is we soaked some snow pea seeds overnight, and then we got them into all of our keyhole beds so that we will have another season or another batch of peas to harvest when we get into the fall, as peas will tolerate a certain amount of cold. Sometimes when we get busy, it's really hard for us to keep up with the harvest of everything at the opportune time. What I like to do when I miss the opportune harvest is to allow the plant to go to seed. One of the plants that does this the most often are the radishes, because they have such a short growing season. It often means that they go to seed before we have a chance to harvest. And I'm looking at one really large radish plant that went to seed. These are the seed pods, and basically now I am allowing that to lay down in the garden. And what we will do is we will cover this over with some mulch or some soil and allow these seeds to take root and grow. Radishes are one of the shortest growing season vegetables. They also are pretty cold tolerant, and so we have a pretty good chance that we are going to have an opportunity to see a crop of radishes from these seeds. I'm standing in the greenhouse. Last summer, at the end of the summer, we had this greenhouse put in. We mulched underneath or over all of the grass that was in here in order to kill the weeds and kind of keep that under control. We have used it this summer for curing garlic. And the other thing that we've used this area for is when we pruned our raspberries, we brought all of our branches in here to dry so that we could then take the leaves and use them to make raspberry leaf tea, which is a common medicinal herb that's used. In here now, for the first time, we've been able to get some winter crops sown in the rows that we have made here. In here we will be growing over the winter dinosaur kale, winter spinach, and a bunch of other spinach that we had that was left over from a previous season. So in here with those crops will also be our rosemary, which I can't seem to keep alive when I bring it inside, and it's just a little bit too cold in this area for the rosemary to be able to survive and overwinter the season without a little bit of protection. So in this greenhouse over the winter, the rosemary will have enough protection that it will make it and be able to wake back up in the spring and provide some good herb use for us. So one of the other things that we did during our volunteer work day yesterday was we got some crops that were planted so that they would be able to live for a while in the cold frames that we have installed. These 2 beds with cold frames were just assembled this spring. We finally got them filled up, and it's just in time for the late summer planting. In here across the back we planted Swiss chard, which has really enjoyed these beds, and they will grow tall and provide greens. And then in the front we have a combination of mustard greens, radishes, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what else we planted in here. So we have 4 raised beds that we did planting like that, and then we have a 5th one that doesn't really have a cold frame. It's just that we put a window pane over it. That we've planted microgreens in there so that we'll be able to harvest some microgreens. The really great thing about season extension is it takes you beyond that first frost. Unfortunately, whenever there's less than 6 hours of sunlight per day, all of your plants kind of go into hibernation. But if they don't get too cold, there's always that possibility that when the daylight starts to return, they will resume their growing and be the earliest harvest available in the garden.